ending up in the vertical position. They're all over the world. These fossilized trees are connecting all these different layers that they're telling us are different ages. So back in 1830, they started teaching the layers of the rock are different ages. And somebody swallowed that and started saying, oh, wow, well, then that means this earth is millions of years old. The fact of the matter is the evidence we see from fossils, from digging in the ground, is you see petrified trees extending from one seam of coal right through 20 feet of rock into another seam of coal. They're found all over the world. Petrified trees in the vertical position are indications that these layers are not different ages. And yet my opponent here and his colleagues will dig in the dirt and find fossils and assume that because one fossil is lower than another one, therefore it is the ancestor of the one above it, which is totally flawed logic. I mean, if I get buried on top of a hamster, that does not prove he's my grandpa, okay? I think the petrified trees that we find in the vertical position, and there are many thousands of them, are indication of rapid burial in mud. All over the world, petrified clams are found on top of mountains. Huge clams in the closed position. They had to be buried quickly. They had to be buried alive, actually, because as soon as a clam dies, it opens. And yet petrified clams in the closed position are extremely common. I've got buckets of them in my museum in Pensacola, Florida. I like fossils. We have a museum. I don't know any Christians that are against science or that are against fossils. I think what's happening, though, is the interpretation that you're placing on these fossils is where the problem comes in. Let me get up to a problem here, to the different ways things are interpreted. My family there, first grandkid, yay, okay. All right. Well, be quicker to find this way. Here's the problems. Students are shown facts, which, like for instance, it's a fact Grand Canyon exists. I don't know anybody that argues with that, okay? But there are two interpretations of how it got there. Those folks who believe in evolution say the canyon formed slowly with a little bit of water and lots of time. Those who believe in creation say it formed quickly with lots of water and a little bit of time. Now the fact is, the canyon exists. The interpretation is not part of the fact necessarily, okay? It's a fact the earth has layers of rock. The evolutionists say these layers formed slowly over millions of years and each one is a different age. I think we can demonstrate that's not true. The creationist says these layers are probably all from one big giant flood in the days of Noah. So my testable hypothesis, sir, is that there was a flood that formed all these layers in rapid succession. And we have evidence of this from trees connecting them all. We have evidence from the fact that Grand Canyon could not possibly have been formed by the could not possibly have been formed by the Colorado River. The top of Grand Canyon is 7,000 or 8,000 feet above sea level, in between the snow lines here. The river enters the canyon at 2,800 feet above sea level. Rivers don't flow uphill. How did it get started? It has to start at the top, eroding its way down. It's 270 miles across there. Grand Canyon is quite obviously a washed out spillway. There used to be a big lake there. And how students are being taught it was formed slowly by the Colorado River and they get by with that and call it science, I don't know. But many, many geologists agree Grand Canyon was formed catastrophically. A couple of great big lakes, Grand Lake and Hopi Lake, overflowed their dams. Got too full, and any farmer that's ever lost a dam to too much water will tell you, it doesn't wash out the whole dam, it washes a slot out of it. Washes a crack out of the middle someplace, and that's what happened with Grand Canyon. The top of the canyon's higher than the bottom. The river runs through the bottom. The top's higher than where the river enters by 4,000 feet. Rivers don't flow uphill. There's no way that river made that canyon. But yet students are taught Grand Canyon formed slowly over millions of years, and some of you are not checking the facts. I just encourage you students here, if you want to believe in evolution, that's perfectly fine. I don't care what you believe in. I'm going home tomorrow. But you believe whatever you want. But you need to examine the facts, the so-called facts that are being presented to you, because I'm telling you, I'm afraid some of you are being brainwashed and you're swallowing it. And I suspect I know the reason why. It might be like Julian Huxley. You might like that evolution theory because it gives you freedom from the Creator. Oh, well, you just do whatever you want, but we'll see Judgment Day what happens. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. All right. We're now going to move on to a 15-minute rebuttal from Dr. Weisenberg.
Well, I have nothing else to confirm what I said about the creationist attitude about the facts. Look, what do we want? We want to have a lecture here about geology? Well, they'll bring in some geologists, right? We'll talk about, you know, the plate tectonics, and we'll talk about radioisotopes and measure radioisotopes. We'll talk about the actual fossils that are in those layers and how they in fact show a logical progression, historical progression. They're history, a record of history, right? Now, I've been to fossil beds. He's probably been there. You know, it's really amazing to see, for example, you can go up the Catskills as I've been. There's fossilized coral reefs. I mean, there are coral reefs in middle New York State. Now, I can explain that from the combination of, plate tectonics and evolution. There's no problem. We have the data, we have the ages, we have the mechanisms. It's all there. I can go a little further away and I can find beds of trilobite fossils, thousands of them, embedded in what was obviously mud at one time. You can dig, and I would challenge my opponent, you can dig all you want in those fossil beds. You can dig, you can dig, you can dig. You will never find a bony fish or any sign of anything that came afterwards. Okay? He talks about dinosaurs. The creationists love it because every now and then somebody will say they found a human footprint or something like that embedded with dinosaur fossils. Come on, there are thousands upon millions of dinosaur fossils. There are some 800, but the Dinosaur National Park thinks about 500 square miles or something. It's huge. And it's millions of dinosaur fossils and other fossils dating back to 100 million or so years ago. You won't find a trace of a human remain. And so, what the creationists do is they proclaim that certain things can't have happened. They say, oh, it doesn't make sense. It could not have happened. We've never seen this, right? And because they proclaim it, we're exposed to say, okay, we're just going to ignore all the evidence, ignore the geologists, ignore the physicists, ignore the chemists, ignore the paleontologists, because the creationists don't have the imagination or something, right? Well, I don't know what it is, because I don't have any problem understanding how slow change contains a single cell. And by the way, let me say something about the banana and the dog, right? Here's an interesting fact. If you take and look at what's inside that banana and those dogs, they're awfully similar. It's cells. It's DNA. You can take a picture of a cell. Now I can tell an animal cell from a plant cell. But if I get an electron micrograph of an animal cell, for example, I can't tell if it comes from a worm or a person. All right? They look basically the same. All right? The same parts. It's like, it's like saying if you've got a bunch of a Lego set, all you can build is what's on the package, right? The little label on the package that shows you can build a truck out of your Legos. No, you can build all kinds of things out of those Legos, okay? And the people who study this, who do the math, who do the computer programs, and in my imagination, I have no problem seeing how you can do that in slow steps. And it's been shown that you can, in fact, do that. And the historical evidence says that's what happened. Now look, this is the book I use in my class. It's a skinny little book because I didn't want my students to have to pay too much money. It happens to be